So, I did a test run this morning. Okay, I got the camera work, but now I just turned it on again. It's no longer working. I just reset it in there, which was the instructions I had gotten. However, I give up. I'm like, how come every time I don't need to run a meeting, it works? And then when I run a meeting, it stops working. The whole thing is just frustrating.
Tuesday night in the summer, I do that. I do a trial run.
Yeah.
And at 7 o'clock, well, 15 minutes before 7, I turn it back on and.
It never worked. It's the most ridiculous thing. But I am putting it on YouTube and recording. It might be the same as last night where we can just hear them. Allison, I made her a speaker. And I fixed the volume thing. We should be able to hear her, and Judy can hear us. Nobody's, unless this all of a sudden starts working.
Is Judy allowed?
She's not allowed to talk. No. It's nobody.
She left
Right.
a letter is on the agenda.
Nobody no part of the board can talk.
I mean, it's-
Allison can guest speakers. I know, it's interesting rules, right?
It seems to me that yesterday's town meeting was more made the letter relevant.
I
I think we are so behind the curve. We need to be. proactive.
Yeah, they seem to not know what was going on. I'm like, they're already way ahead of that.
Yes.
I was thinking the same thing.
I think it's a good invite list for a work session, and I think we're moving from requesting a meeting, or a community forum to what our actual recommendations are at this work session.
I think we
That,
should
that's
do
what
that.
we should
Yeah.
discuss today.
I agree. Couldn't agree more.
You know, we're not asking for it anymore, we've already said we're doing it. So what are we asking for at that? I don't, more.
I've got your email up here.
How many altogether? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's only information, it's not blow up the world.
I'm sorry?
It's only for information, it's not blow up the world.
No, but it's, you're right, it's right. I mean, it really makes you wonder how this got through. I mean, was it CRMC?
We can see Allison. Hang on, I'm gonna say something.
If they.
Allison, can you hear us?
Did they have a cut-off time if it's not signed off by X?
Those are all good questions.
Yeah.
Allison?
Yeah, we'll do.
Allison?
We'll do the update report on town council and a little, smart people and this sort of thing. We're sitting around too long.
Allison, will you unmute?
Good move. You can bring.
But you're welcome.
You come sit here and bring
Allison,
the
can you hear me? Will you say something, Allison? Allison,
Oh.
can you hear me?
And so you're indoctrinated.
Pretty much.
Allison? Five.
Okay, good.
Oh, fine.
Allison? Allison? Yep. And the camera's not working again. Allison?
I thought we had Alison picked up there.
We did, but that's from the Zoom. It's not our camera. Like, our camera isn't
Oh,
showing
yeah,
us,
okay. That's
you
fine.
know, so we'll be able to hear her. Okay. Allison? Allison? Allison?
Just wanted this coffee.
I just want to make sure we can hear her.
Indication, looking for sound is going on, but I don't what exactly privileged person.
I'm very happy about that.
I just think that'll help with our conversation.
Yeah, I can put them complete. It's the map I've not to blame for that one. I think. Just-
Allison?
It's not, it's different from the one you know.
All right, well,
Carlos sort of absolutely right. I actually, I watched the presentation afterwards, he summarised it very nicely.
Yes, Carlos, yes, that exciting. I think it's so great. Oh, tell them. I'm holding out until you are good, Laurel, or.
might as well go ahead.
Brian.
Yeah.
All right, I call meeting to order. It's 3:04 on Tuesday, March 5th. It's the CLRS committee meeting. Our first item on the agenda is public input. No one on the public input? There she is.
I'm just teasing.
Anyone else have anything that's not on the agenda or they want to discuss? Approval of minutes from February 6th, Sea Level Rise committee meeting. Any comments? Things, minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve.
So.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All in favor? Approval of minutes from February 15th, Sea Level Rise workshop to develop the 2024 committee agenda. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve?
So.
Second? Great. All in favor? Super. All right, moving on to committee member updates. Item A is update report on town council. A number of us were at the meeting last night.
Yes.
That I think was really productive. The two items on their agenda were local oversight of the Bluff Dune stabilization projects on private property. And then the town beach parking lots, and kind of a broader conversation about Connect Road. And I thought they were both, I thought it was great that the town council had taken us up, because obviously they've been two topics of conversation for us in these meetings. And I thought it was, empowering to hear from them that those are priorities for them as well. I do think it kind of changes our approach moving forward. Judy had drafted this great letter that I know a lot of people put a lot of time into working on and thinking about how best to move basically a request forward for a meeting about particularly the Bluff Dune stabilization projects forward, but I almost feel like in a great way we're on to step 3 now. Which is the town is going to be convening some work sessions to discuss both of those items. Starting with the Bluff Dune stabilization projects. I think the big question for that work session is going to be sort of how CRMC and the town overlap, and who has authority over what, and how the town can become more involved in approving, or at least even just seeing these projects before they are implemented. So I believe Martha and Pete are the points of contact on that part, on the Bluff Dune stabilization project work session. So I think we should reach out to them and make sure this ball keeps rolling. And the other things that folks took away from that meeting about that part, I will talk.
I have a question, because there's a work session tomorrow, right?
So, oh, yes, so there is not going to be a work session about sea level rise. It is a work session, but the agenda got changed. Thank you for bringing that up. I didn't say that initially. So that has been changed. I think they're talking about like the school and property taxes now. So we got bumped from that. So I don't have a date yet, which is why I'm gonna encourage maybe someone who's on those working groups to follow up with the town council to say, we really want to do this, and here are some folks that we want to be. You know, take our own initiative to invite people who we think should be invited to that work session.
Is it to the block one?
To the block one, yeah, I'm starting with block.
And we don't know when this is.
No. As far as. Any additions from that portion of the conversation last night? Or any other?
I have comments, but not on the ones.
Okay, okay.
Well, maybe.
I just want to say, Claire, I heard your statement last night, and you spoke, it was really awesome.
Oh.
I can't quote it, but if you know the time, I'm like, got it right, got it.
That's any cool. Yeah.
Everyone that was there
It was
spoke.
Good, yeah, good conversation and, you know, I certainly feel. I think it is jump starting, some forward motion, some action. So if there's not anything else of that update, then the next item on their agenda.
Kim number.
I just want to ask for a clarification question. You're talking about where Martha and Keith are gonna work with CRMC, is that going?
Yes, and
Because
I,
from what I was hearing, it didn't sound like it was necessarily gonna be a work session as much as it was them talking to CRMC. And bringing information back, but if it was a work session, I think that would be great. Even if it was one where they didn't take public input, where the public input. At least observe.
what I would love to see, I'm sorry, I'm repeating.
No, I was gonna say-
would love, what I'm sort of hoping for, and maybe if folks agree, we can encourage them to do. You know, I think this is only gonna be a productive conversation after Martha and Keith have spoken to CRMC about what exactly the town is able to do. And then I'm pretty sure my dad had said, or Keith had said, that, they were gonna get together with like the land use attorney and some pull in other people to have a meeting about how to move this forward with that, with the CRMC input reflected.
But would that be a public meeting or would that just be their own working?
It's a good question. So let's.
I mean,
figure that out.
What Keith said to me in an email is that he will suggest to the council, this is before the meeting last night, that I meaning Keith, will work with our land use attorney, Mike Shea, and others to make sure we're getting this right. So it sounded like he wanted a small group.
More of a small group.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And he actually stressed the small in all caps, because I think he wants to keep it.
Sure. Well, then, I think, you know, we have members of our committee who have identified themselves as being interested in town ordinance, rewriting, that kind of thing, so maybe we can suggest someone from our group to be part of that small group to represent our interests, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I took this as sort of an invitation to me in particular, but I think not on zoning. I mean, you said mainly you and anything else you think would be helpful. But
Great, Matt.
but I think the zoning aspect is, I mean, obviously, Tim came up with a lot of zoning reasons why we should be looking at these things already. But I think it's also, what can we do and but also, are there scientific reasons why we think we should not be doing it? For
Right.
example.
Right.
That was, I don't know, why we I'm just-
Yeah.
So,
Well, Nigel, can you follow up and see what the next steps are on that portion of this and let us know?
yeah, I
if
mean,
there
this
needs
may
to
happen
be-
before there is a letter, before there's an opportunity. You know, and I mean, you should talk to your dad too, for goodness sake. So, yes.
Can we share Kim's letter? Can that be shared with us?
It wasn't a letter, it was just an informational email that I sent them.
Yeah, is that something- Is that
It
something?
was just, my thought processing, trying to remember from the past about zoning. That there is a coastal zone on Block Island, and that it's protective and it's 100 feet back from the coastal feature, and that it allows very little, its whole goal is to be protective. And so it seems like from a zoning, from a zone, that they use in that zone, that probably you shouldn't have these. It says specifically, don't disrupt the vegetation, the natural vegetation. And then, it's a little unclear to me whether or not the uses in the coastal zone would include the uses in the underlying residential zone, for instance. If it did, there's things, for instance, in residential A that would be allowed by special use permit such as earth removal with standards. And it would seem, I actually don't think that those uses would be allowed in the coastal zone, but if they were, there are standards there about how to do earth removal, but you need, I would encourage the town council to not just say, oh, no, we missed this one, but to ask the land use attorney and the zoning enforcement or land use official to make a report to them about what happened, what could happen, and what should have happened, and what could happen in the future. And use it as an opportunity to learn something about making people aware that this is not, I don't believe, acceptable. And they might come back and say, CRC has a complete jurisdiction, doesn't matter, yes, coastal zone. Or they might say, well, earth removal is really more about mining and not about, but I think there's a strong, based on the current zoning today, I think there's a strong argument to be made that those things should not be happening in the coastal zone.
Well, I guess the thing you sent me says, no earth removal shall be conducted within 50 feet of any lot except one formed by a street or 200 feet from any landward coastal zone boundary, which sounds fairly.
Right, so the coastal zone is 100 feet from the,
Yes.
coastal feature.
So
And
if you've got to stay 200 feet back from that,
Right,
yes.
so it's, but I don't, I don't think any of us know what happened, whether or not CMCD pursued getting. Or if somehow it wasn't seen at the town level, and after a certain amount of time, it goes without. I don't know, and I know, but I do know that from my past experience, and maybe things have changed significantly, but. CMC would never take up an application until all of the local, permissions were in place. If they needed, relief, setback relief, or if it was a special use or anything, it used to be they wouldn't take it up, so is that a change in policy or? Have things slipped in such a way that the new person didn't know that?
I mean, if you read the whole thingy, it certainly said they needed to have it signed off in advance, right? In that.
I had the documentation, have a piece of paper that was signed by the building official on it. And it talked about, it showed a place for the zoning official to sign.
Yes.
But interesting, what the language was, if it, they put it, if it actually is involved, then they need to sign. I mean, they're supposed to sign, I think, to say it wasn't involved, but, it's a little funny looking. The main thing is the CRMC has very, restricted standards, and we went over this a little last night. You have to have, they call it material and significant or something, substantive objection. there were no substantive objections based on what they got from the town. And so they weren't required to file a public notice, and so we didn't get a public notice. The town knew about it, it was sent to the town to sign off on, they signed off. And then it went back to them and they proceeded along. It was a non-structural, through all the process, it doesn't, I mean, it's non-structural, they really don't have a lot of stops in there unless the municipality has ordinances in place, and this is where we need to get clear on and or change them to, potentially stop or at least enforce, I'd say compel public hearing to be held. And so it's clear what we need to be doing, among other things, is get on that bandwagon, and you may be right that it did in fact trample on some zoning, but it certainly wasn't viewed that way.
Right, because maybe.
The right
City
people didn't
learned
look at it.
To hear from both the town, and we have a new land use attorney, and we have, and it shouldn't be, I mean. It's the zoning official. Or the land use official, both of which we have, that should be signing off. The building official would only sign off on structures.
Well, but it's their form document. And it requires the building, this is what they sent to the town. You get the building official to sign off, and then there's a place for the zoning official. To say it doesn't violate any blah, 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 but. They could have decided, I don't know what happened there.
That's what I'm saying, you have to find out whether or not they're allowed to act. If their own procedures are allowed, or it's just no.
They're absolutely allowed to act once they get a piece of paper back from the town that says it's okay.
But it's missing a signature.
Yeah, so
Well, I'll show you the piece of paper, I think it is, and I think those
I've got it.
think it is, but,
My point is that now that you have that, the town has that information, the town should, review its processes and make sure that our zoning official and our building official and our land use attorney are up to speed on this.
I mean, my reading is, I think, a bit different from yours, George. I mean, okay, so the building official signs off, ticks this box, and find that the issuance of a local building permit is not required as in accordance with section whatever of the Rhode Island State Building Code, the building official signs off. And then there's a separate thing, and find that said plans conform with all elements of the zoning ordinance, and that if said plans require zoning board approval, and that the applicant has secured such approval, and that the requisite appeal period has passed with no appeal filed or appeal is final. That is not signed off on. And I would think that that's pretty clear that it's not been completed. But then there's a stamp received right underneath that, November 09/2022 by CRMC, which is a little strange.
I'm not trying to defend CRMC, I'm just saying, this is what we've got.
Yeah.
They think they got approved somehow,
yeah.
Yeah,
So
because the town sent it back to them,
right, right.
and that's what happened, the town sent it back to them.
There definitely needs to be a review of, this is a great example of one that got through and so. Of kind of postmortem on how it got through, what the processes were that were used to. What are the steps? I think someone here just said it, what were the steps? What do we think the steps should be? What are we allowed to require? So. I think this conversation is more productive if there's the land use attorney, a representative from CRMC, all these people who can actually answer these questions in the room. So Nigel, if you're game to be a part of that small group, if you think there's someone else on the committee that would be helpful to be a part of that conversation, I empower you to do that. I do not know if I have that authority, but I'll go.
And just one other thing, remembering that you're advisory, you know, your advice to the town council is to seriously review this case. Yeah. For the future, and that should be, I would think, a strong, you know, referral to the town council, and then it's up to them to put their staff, their attorneys, their in place and get the report back. But you can do it on the side.
So, to your point, Kim, we were discussing a little bit before the meeting, not to jump ahead, but just because I want to make sure that we don't do this, I think this great letter everyone working on, should be that, should be our recommendations to the town. That perhaps Nigel carries forward, someone carries forward to that group. So, we'll. And I would like to have a broader discussion about what people's thoughts are. You need to think about it more, send them that meeting if that's something. Moving on to the second part of the update from town council, town beach parking lots and a broader conversation about Cornick Road. I don't know if people were figuring out how it's gonna get, how small it is. So, and, Allison gave a great update that she's still working with Marion, I believe. Sorry, Allison, I don't know if we can hear you, but.
Hi, yes, I'm sorry, I switched.
that
Can you hear me
guys
now?
are working, if I understood everything correctly, you guys are working with Renown Infrastructure Bank to figure out what exactly that grant is going to cover, and then putting together an RFP to, get the technical advice that I believe is really essential to guiding this conversation about what to do on Cornick Road and at Town Beach.
And this proposal is focused just on the town beach portion of Cornick Road, is that correct?
I think it's a little clear. So the money, I do know that the money we got from the, NIPWIF, and I believe Infrastructure Bank as well, although I think you guys are still kind of figuring out exactly what the scope of that project is, was for engineering work from like the beachhead or engineering and planning work from the beachhead to Scott Beach. So to me, it's that whole section. I think it should be looked at as a system, my own opinion. This is all vulnerable.
Allison,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
can hear on
Oh,
here.
now we can hear you, Allison.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I switched computers. I don't know, my speakers were having issues on the other one. So, yeah, the status is they did approve our revised budget. The infrastructure bank, we had been awarded a partial award, so $465,000 from the infrastructure bank, plus our $185,000 from NIFWIF. So combined, that large pot of money is going to be used for planning and design along the corridor and along Cornick Road. But the focus is with the grant, what was awarded, what we had applied for was Scotch Beach, and then the town beach parking area, dunes there, restoration of dunes where there's, gaps or access. So it's mostly planning and design, and then we did move some money into implementation, like $200,000 towards actual construction, drainage, movement of the sand dunes, planting. So it will be at multiple locations along Cornick Road within that Scotch Beach to Beachhead, but mostly Town Beach and Scotch Beach. So next step would be, so we're just about to execute the grant agreement with Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, and then we can post, then we can write the RFP and advertise the RFP to hire professionals to assist us. And it would be, at least a year-long process and include multiple opportunities for public engagement as they develop, design, permit those solutions.
And who, I think there was some conversation at the meeting last night about who exactly reviews that RFP. And some of the council in particular would like to look at it and just become better familiarized with the scope of the work, what are the next steps there, so I think.
I did speak with the town manager today, so I think, we'll work together on developing the RFP with other staff and, that would be involved, and of course, the council's welcome to review the RFP before it's advertised.
Okay,
Yeah, he also wanted my shade, have a look at that.
Yeah, Mike has the grant application. He was involved, in the grant, the development. We've had conversation with him. He was involved in conversations related to the development of that application, has a copy of the grant application, and we'll certainly ask for his input in helping with developing the RFP.
So 2 questions, Allison. One, you mentioned 200,000 is set aside for actual construction, and then I think you said that includes dune restoration and planting. Is that what the 200,000 is?
Part of that scope was to address drainage in the town beach parking lot. So like infiltration system, what had been designed by the town engineer had in developing this grant application, the town engineer came up with a conceptual design for drainage for the town beach parking lot. So that's part of that construction funding. And I guess it's whatever solutions that are identified through the planning, design, permitting process, money put towards that. Originally, because we had requested, like $1 million, we only received part of that award, and they were just going to give us money for planning and design. And because we knew that the community was ready to move forward towards implementation, or at least some of the solutions, we were able to, the infrastructure bank gave us the flexibility to move around the funding into to implementation to start that.
So the idea that there'd be an RFP for design and build, for design and planning, and then another one for the.
I would assume it's one, okay, I know, with actual construction funds after. Yeah, we'll have to think that through. I mean, I was hoping majority of it will be filled by one firm or with subs, or it could be,
There
yeah.
are firms that do all of that.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. Something to think through, but certainly planning, design, and engineering firm. I know Fuss and O'Neill's been involved in advising us and helping us through the grant application process. They have coastal engineers and coastal geologists. So that'll be part of the group that works on developing the RFP. We can work through those questions.
Okay, mine is not very deep, but I think important. As I was observing the town council members, I noticed a very wide range of understanding of the Cornet Road grant project.
it's not,
It's on.
oh, it is, sorry, from here to.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, you're
it
right.
was.
It should look like it's on. Okay, I'll say it again. While observing the town council members last night, I noticed a wide range of understanding of the project regarding Cornet Road grant monies. And from my teaching experience, most people will not remember what is said unless it's said at least 14 times. And I would like to, first of all, recommend that, Allison, that you just write down these things that you just told us, and then give a copy to each of the town council members so they can have that for reference. Number 2, I heard disagreement in terms of the size of the project, but I think if you look at it globally, both parties were right. One council member wanted a big project, another one said no, a small. And I was reminded by DEM recommending small demonstration projects, and Oppenheimer saying look for low cost projects. But I think we can do both in a way. I think we need to have the vision for the big project on Cornet Road. so that we know how all the pieces are connected. And then determine, once we know how much money we have to spend, which smaller project we can begin with, because I don't think it's possible that we won't have enough money for all the projects. So my request is please outline the review or outline the status of the grant monies and include the next steps, including who is responsible for those next steps. That's my suggestion.
Thanks, Tricia. That's a good suggestion. So in this case, I don't think I'm mistaken, they are convening a work session about this specific topic. And my thinking, you know, in my opinion, there needs to be technical advice at that meeting for it to be productive. You know, I think we've all said, and I mean this in a very positive way, but we have all spent 2 years batting around the ideas that we have, and I think they're all great ideas, but I think we need someone who actually knows what they're talking about to really tell us what needs to be done. So,
Can I interrupt a second?
yeah.
Did I need to put my suggestion into a form of a motion?
Sorry?
Should I have made my suggestion in the form of a motion? In other words, how does the group feel about it?
Sorry, I thought you said a form of emotion. I was like, what are you talking about? I think you were very motivated. Trying to toddlers other feelings all the time. No, I mean, I think, Allison, it was really a suggestion to Allison to write these things down, to share with the council and us. No, I don't think you need to. make a
Does that mean you'll do it, Allison? That's what I'm really after.
I'm in communication with Marianne about the conversation with the council last night, and I can follow up with her today. She will communicate. I don't communicate directly with council members, so I'm gonna send her she has a grant application. The council's going to be provided that, and if they're interested in reading the full application, the council was provided, the award notice and summary at the time it was received. And as far as you wanted to provide an update to the town council on next steps for the grant application, moving it forward, like through RFP, is that, I mean, certainly the town manager can certainly provide that update at the next council meeting. And I will let her know. I will email her after this meeting to let her know that was recommended by the Steel Rise Committee.
Yeah, so I guess where I was going with that is, so it seems to me the next step here is really getting that RFP together, pulling the council's input into that, Allison. I know Judy or I might like to see it as well. But then, I think we just need to get that out there and get technical advice into the room for a productive conversation to move us off. It's not, so.
Just trying to wrap my head around what the work session would actually tackle. So is it partly sort of information sharing about like, here's what's been done so far, here's what's already been proposed, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around what that work session will be.
To me, it's, and I'm sorry, perhaps I'm being too impatient, but it's moving forward. It's what we need to do to, we know what the problems are, generally speaking. And what I want to see is a presentation from an engineer about what the various projects are.
Do we have that? Will we have anything to do that?
Well, that's what the money was that we.
But for this work session, or it's pushed off until we have that.
I mean, I guess that, I mean, whatever people think, I personally feel like we have talked and talked and talked about this, and so until we have someone in the room who can actually say that's a good idea. I just don't know how productive, I just think it'll be another. Iteration.
It seemed like part of just kind of getting the town council on board with like, here's what's been done so far, here's what's being planned. And here's where, you know, there'll be opportunities for input, or sort of laying out the whole, because it sounded like they also, what you've expressed was one clear next steps and.
Yeah.
Getting back to know it's not really another year past. But this grant is about, it's already, it is about moving those next steps, so I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
Like, will seeing all this information on the grant and what's the scope of work for the RFP and all that, will that be enough to satisfy the town council that these things are moving forward, and then they will have that designer on board and they have something to present in terms of options? Is that
Well, the
really been a
grant
work session?
surely is gonna be, I mean, that's the point, the town council will be involved. I mean, the thinking about the use of the grant, we get the grant's not for us, it's for the town.
Right.
But, sorry, it seemed like you were thinking that was going to be our discussion, but I don't think it is, that's what.
No, it does feel like there's a disconnect, like. The town council members aren't fully aware of this grant and what it's meant to do and.
Which is
That's
why
the
Keith wants to see the
Right.
RFP, I see.
Right, but that's,
Right.
and then, so the work session is for,
I think the work session again is saying that Keith is convening with a mix of people to try and figure out what the town, where the town wants to put its priority, including this grant, but probably not only this grant. That would be mine.
I would think so.
So I wanted to just say something about this grant and, you know, the Corn Neck Road protection, so on. It seems like there's two barely related problems that are being talked about for this grant, or at least for the planning study that the grant will support, right? So I keep hearing talk about the flooding of the parking lot, which is clearly a problem. And the sort of dune protection of Corn Neck Road, which is also clearly a problem. Those two problems are only somewhat related. I mean, my sense is that the flooding is actually far more often from rain
Yes,
than it is from anything to do with
yes.
tidal issues. You know, the number of times that we've had tides that have been high enough to flood that lot is pretty small. And, you know, it's an issue, but clearly if we solve the dune problem and the whole issue of water coming from the ocean through the town beach house onto the lot, that's going to solve a fraction of the flooding issues. But there's going to be a lot of flooding issues in that lot until it's re-engineered or redesigned or something. That, you know, are really not part of a sea level rise issue at all. If we're thinking that this grant is really for sea level rise resiliency, I don't think that the flooding is actually necessarily part of sea level rise resiliency. I would put all of the effort into the dune protection side of things, which will solve some of that flooding anyway.
I agree, I mean, I think that this, to me, what we're trying to do is protect the road, and in some ways, the parking lot.
It's part of the
helping to protect
protection.
the road.
No, it is, it's
It is.
floodplain.
And
you
so,
know, which is such a-
You know, so I don't know if there's the will there to, you know, designate the parking lot as, it's just gonna flood, you know, because that's what's protecting the road, and then ensuring that there's connection between the southern and northern part of the island, which was, going back to the grants, the whole rationale for doing the planning was to preserve the connection between the north and south ends of the island.
Right.
So,
And, yeah,
so
rain flooding.
if there's some impact to the, I do not want to see this, RFP to go out requesting engineering for the town beach. park.
No, absolutely not,
Yeah,
that's
but
basically
you're-
what I'm trying to say,
Yes.
yes.
Parking lot floods because of rain, because when the cable was put in,
Yes.
they put in the wrong soils that were not permeable enough. And the water just sits there.
Now, I will say some of that water is coming from the ocean sometimes.
Okay,
And so I think addressing that source of water is part of this grant,
Mhm.
part of our thinking or what we're advocating for.
Mhm.
So yeah, going back to Anne's question, because I think it's just like a good one to think about sort of what the process is gonna be. You know, in my mind, this RFP gets drafted by Allison and Mary Ann.
Allison's got her hand up too.
Okay, Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just getting a little concerned with where the direction this conversation's going. So we wrote a grant, the town, with a specific project scope. And we were awarded that grant. So the RFP is going to be consistent with what we wrote for the grant. We can't just decide now. Like, we have an approved grant application. We're going to be executing a contract with the funding agency. We can't just decide we're going to go out to bid.
Right.
That's not consistent with what we were awarded. So we were awarded funding. The grant application includes drainage, a project in the town beach parking lot. So now I have Seal Rise Committee members saying that they don't want that being part of the RFP. Well, that means we need to go back to the funding agency. Are you suggesting we turn down the funds?
No, Allison, I think we're all on the same page. We want this money to be dedicated to what we wrote the grant for, which is protection of Port Neck Road. I think we just don't want to conflate the issue the town has with the parking lot with what our objective is, which is the protection of Port Neck Road.
And I know that the multiple, the comment about they seem unrelated, and I understand they're different issues. So when we were developing the grant application, we were, there's funding available. We're looking for projects. These were identified. And we talked to the infrastructure bank about whether to apply separately for these two projects or in the same vicinity, bundle them. So, the strategy, we included them all in one grant application. We were looking for strategies to, to make ourselves more competitive for funding. So, and we did receive the funding. So these are the projects that we had decided to move forward with and were awarded, and that we would advertise for an RFP.
Okay, so. in terms of
Now,
yes,
there is some conversation. I mean, I don't know what, I guess I'm confused with the conversation at this point in the process. Now, we're going to be putting out an RFP. A firm will be hired. They're going to hold public engagement sessions about the issues, the identifying strategies. And then that's where, the public and the Civil Rights Committee is going to give input throughout that process on those strategies, because there will be, additional opportunities for next round of funding to implement additional components to this. So is that what we're talking about now, like for the next round of funding, or the workshop we're talking about? You're trying to host something like this locally, like the town hosts something in advance of starting this process?
I mean, Allison, I'm sorry, I don't think I quite understand where your confusion is coming from, but basically, did you get hung up on what Nigel had to say, which is just that there are two issues here, there's the flooding in the parking lot, and then the protection of the road infrastructure, and like, what are, I'm sorry. I just don't really understand what you're confused by, I'm sorry. What,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, so the one thing I would say is, I don't think we should be getting too hung up on the grant thing, because we have responsibility for much more than how this smallish pot of money is being spent. I mean, obviously, it's important that it's being spent in a useful way, but it's not going to cover the priorities that we're necessarily going to be putting forward. It's a small bit of a bigger puzzle. So I think we should be pushing for what we want to happen, as opposed to being hung up on the usage of little grants. I mean, you know, it's an important grant, but is it going to solve everything? Probably not, especially as it's been talked down, as I understand it, from the original budget.
So I have a question, and then, first, I just don't fully understand the scope of this grant, but if there's a design and planning part, is that broader than the drainage question? Is that part, can that be used for looking at this, all the issues between the beach and Scotch Beach and the dune restoration and all that? Can you use, it sounds like the 200,000 has been earmarked for the drainage project, but is a design and planning part of it more flexible in terms of it would actually be something else in terms of designing the bigger solutions for.
Yes, to answer your question, yes, the planning is more broad than those two specific locations and projects.
So that is what we have now, I guess, like, I hope we can get as much out of it as we can, since it's gonna take another year at least to get more grant funding for doing something else.
Claire, you were involved in writing the grant, correct? Well, shouldn't we have, since we're talking about it a lot, fortunately we know about it, but shouldn't we have copies of that grant in front of us?
And that was
I think it has been circulated.
Has it? Okay.
Really?
last year.
I don't,
All right, well.
I don't remember.
It's not clear on something, it's probably in writing somewhere.
Should be.
And I think it'd be nice to, you know, if it had to then be, as it were, diminished because of budgetary reasons, I think we need to know what's left in it, as it were, in terms of the philosophy, the main philosophy.
So, yeah, let's start there, and I mean, the whole reason we wrote that was so that there would be this technical advice to guide these conversations, so I just feel so strongly that that is the next step here, is having someone in the room who's going to provide us with more expertise. So, in terms of our next steps, yes, well, Allison, would you please circulate those grant applications
Yes,
to the board? So everyone has them.
Should we
Maybe,
also forward it to the town council members?
no, to the committee.
To the committee and, you know, the council. I think it should be part of the RFP development, which is the council is part of. I mean, I don't really know if I can. Sure, and yeah, share it with them as well, if they haven't already asked for it. I mean, if they're gonna be part of putting the RFP together, I think they would
Right?
want to see it anyway, you know, that needs to come from us. You know, I think I think the goal of the work session was to figure out what the next steps were going to be. So I don't know if that needs to happen after these smaller groups have put together that RFP, sent it out, non-technical expertise into the room for the work session, so I will follow up. And figure it out. Moving on, if that's okay. This letter to the town council regarding beach dune bluff mitigation projects. We've kind of already touched on this. And I'll just sort of say my piece, and then people can feel free to chime in. I think it's a great letter, and I really appreciate everyone's efforts, and I'm feeling like we got it already, we got the council's attention, and so I think our letter should be reworked to be a list of things that we think they should consider, the town council should consider, as they look to figure out what the town's position is going to be on these projects. And I have a list of things that I think they should consider. Sure, others do as well. But what do people think about that as being more the meat of the letter, as opposed to requesting that there be a community forum about?
Well, I agree, we've already gotten the community forum idea across, or the council got it across to us, that they're planning to do just that. So I think now we have to help with the construction of that forum, what's going to be in that forum that they're going to host. For example, who's going to be hiring the technical experts that really need to be at the forum, or provide some input that can be discussed at the forum. For that time. I still don't know how that's going to happen. Do you know how that's going to happen?
Well, I don't think for this one, it's going to be, for this one, it was going to be, is something that a small working group, I think, was gonna work on.
A town small working group, you mean?
Yes, you know, this was the, am I mistaken about that? I thought it was gonna be Mark and Keith working to figure out what CRC, the town, have authority to do, and then, so what I was thinking was that perhaps the Sealable Rise Committee could put together a list of our recommendations for what the town council should be considering when looking at these projects and ordinances and that kind of thing. What are those?
Yeah, but I would make that step two, because step one, I want to be able to rule out what we don't have the power to do before we start making suggestions that are outside of our purview.
Well, I think there are. Yes, yes, you're right. We need to figure out what we can and can't do, but I think there are things that we could say. There are things that we have local control over, and so.
But we don't know where and when CRC can override us.
I think a very high priority, certainly for, you know, what Keith was suggesting, was to actually get CIMC involved in direct discussion ASAP, so that we really know. And you know, that I think is one of the highest ones before.
And even if some of these things end up being under CRC, you know, I think we can still put together a list of things that in our ideal world we would like to see happen.
For sure.
And, you know, I want to keep the momentum, you know, Judy's letter is a great start. So I want to keep that momentum going. I just think we got their attention. Now what are we going to do with it? And to me, what we should do with it is provide them with the recommendations of the committee. And if folks feel we should wait till we have more information from CRMC, feel free to, if that's the approach we want to take, say your piece.
Are you proposing that this letter is junked, or are you proposing that this letter is sent with modifications? That's what
I think the meat of it, to my mind, needs to change because, okay. It ends with it recommends that we undertake a community forum for discussing issues concerning ideas of community design, et cetera. And so, maybe that still is part of our recommendation, but I think there should be more meat to that, in my opinion.
But the purpose is still, the focus is still on these resiliency projects, the private property owners. Exactly. I was thinking about a broader sort of, these are just some of the issues, but there's a lot of other issues that we're seeing, everything sort of coming very visible very quickly, and I feel like we need a plan, like we need a climate resilience plan, we need a case for a coordinator hired by the town who can facilitate this, because we're gonna get really
Thinking of a lot of review to this.
I mean, maybe two things, or maybe a letter specifically on this immediate need with the increased recommendation. I'm not opposed to that.
I mean, I think the way this letter starts is almost the way Keith opened the meeting, opened the discussion of this section of the agenda last night. So I think that, starting out talking about approaches from homeowners and so on is completely irrelevant to us communicating with the town council at this point. I think that's all, as you say, they've got the message anyway. We don't need to be stating it again. So I think if we're going to write it, it needs to be a completely new letter and not along the lines of you said, Claire, listing what we consider to be some really important projects. I actually thought the letter was sort of too conservative, right? I mean, Judy said in her cover thing, we don't want to be treading on toes or otherwise offending. I think we absolutely need to be treading on toes. I mean, we need to get over this fact that we can't upset everyone.
Well, and as an outsider who hasn't been a part of this, that's gotten everyone's attention. And
Yes, no, and
now
we
it's a
need
chance
to
for you
use
guys to
that, yes.
really up your visibility,
Absolutely.
and it's not just that.
Yeah.
But that's a part of it, so I think this is a great opportunity for y'all to do just what y'all were discussing.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly, this has become like a flashpoint issue, but you're right. There are so many other things that we've been talking about and thinking about for so long.
Keith was very,
I'm sorry.
Do we have some specific recommendations we can put in the letter? One excellent one just came up when we talked about it before, and that was a town having a coastal resiliency officer. Maybe we can make that recommendation in this letter.
And we have to put together our budget recommendation. We've been invited to submit a budget request. So.
You got a formal,
I don't know if the formal invite, but we're. But, and obviously that's not, I'm sorry, I don't know if I totally understand what this agenda item is, like that we're asking for money to fund our own activities, or we're asking for things to be included in the budget. I read it as we're asking for things to be included in the budget, such as this community resilience officer, or climate resilience officer, Yeah, and I think there's some language from this that is useful, you know, that we're seeing problems having to do with sea level rise and being approached by private homeowners constantly about issues. You know, there's stuff going on with the bluffs, stuff going on with the dunes on other private properties, you know, we're seeing,
What doesn't help is that initially, when they first formed, we sort of separated dune erosion from sea level rise. And there's an overlap because of the climate change. The storms are stronger and more frequent, so the dunes will be eroding more frequently, but that's not literally an example of sea level rise. Now, I constantly feel like we may have to refigure who we are. Because I think we're more than a sea level rise committee.
Then I think we separate the erosions and
What do you mean?
separate.
Remember Judy was very strong about that she felt that dune erosion was not part of the sea level rise.
No, this was it was bluff, not, he was referring to bluff erosion.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I say dune erosion?
Yeah.
I know, you know.
I'm so-
Fine, yeah.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, sorry. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree that bluff erosion is part of the game, and if it was not considered to be part of the game, it should be.
but Keith was very excited about meeting with CRMC first.
Yeah,
And I would like, and I think you said it already, to have some of us at that table, because one person hears one thing, right, another person hears something else, and two heads or three heads are, well, I would love to be able to just sit in on the meeting.
well, I think we've asked Nigel to be part of that small working group that's,
It has to be a public meeting though, doesn't it, by law?
I think that Keith's idea is probably not. I think that's why he wants it small, he doesn't want to be under.
No, you're never gonna.
Because I think that way you can have a conversation as opposed to, and yeah, you don't need an agenda that goes on the town clerk or whatever.
Well, Julie had on her long range goals, the desire to invite CRMC.
Yeah,
Well, it seems like we're gonna have to move past the long-term goal and jump right into it as a short-term goal. We've got counselors that will be meeting with CRMC just as soon as they can, and that's great.
Right. Right.
okay. Cool. So do folks feel that there needs to be a specific letter about beach dues bluff mitigation projects to the town council, or is this
I think Keith himself did a wonderful job in listing all the items that need to be looked at in order to address this issue.
I agree, I think there is a plan to move forward on addressing that. And I don't know that a letter from us is going to change that at this point.
But is there anything that we can offer? I mean, sort of advice, right, or, I'm not sure that there isn't, like.
Well, I think we were asked to do something, and social reminded us right then. I didn't catch it, but thank you for that. I think we were tasked, loosely anyway, with going out and finding out what the other communities are doing, the other islands are doing. I mean, Keith mentioned that, but so someone has to go and put that information together. Probably makes sense that some of us. That, okay.
But you don't really load on. Equipment filing, they're addressing all of the same issues we are, it's critical, how they follow up these. So. It might be nice to have, providing those funds.
We have a working group that is put together for that purpose.
Well,
Public info and education.
no,
There you are.
That's the one you're on.
Oh, okay. Well, it's on the sheet of paper. I'm not trying to.
So in terms of, I just wanna figure out what, because I know this is important to Judy to figure out what we're doing about this letter. To me, I think, we've identified at least one person to be part of this small group conversation about what the possibilities are. And, yeah, I would just ask that you keep this in the loop, Nigel.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
I think it's up to Keith who gets advice,
Uh-huh.
honestly, I mean, I don't think, I mean, I think he probably needs the freedom to sort of say, these are the people that are in the small group.
Mhm.
But assuming, I mean,
So if people have specific recommendations, can we send them to you
the recommendations for,
for considerations that the town should be making about these projects? Or do you wanna wait till you've had it,
I think it'd be good to see what Keith puts together
Okay.
first.
okay,
If there are specific recommendations that individuals have, they should probably go straight to Keith. I would think, given the way he was talking yesterday.
great.
Um,
And then in terms of a letter to the council. And other department, first, because I think this was going to, CC to a number of people. You know, I'm sort of feeling like. Let's get Judy back in the room and see what her approach is gonna be, because it's really perfect, and I don't wanna, I don't wanna take it over from her. I do think, jumping down, that there is a budget request, and perhaps that can be, as Anne is saying, more of a global look at the things that we're considering, and the things that we've identified as being important, and how the town can invest in those projects.
I guess related to.
No, go ahead.
When we get to that, are we at that agenda point now?
Yeah, you know, unless people really wanted to work on developing action plans for, you know. In my opinion, the development of the action plans, I think each of these groups should take it upon themselves to find time outside of the meeting. I thought that was the whole idea of these action groups. So,
we do.
so why don't we say these action groups, they start time to meet between our next, you know, over the next month to come up with those action plans? So yes, on to number 7.
So I guess for the coastal resilience officer idea, which I fully support, because I just feel like it's. Mainly, I think. Helpful to have support for Allison and other town members in planning and actually implementing, even like overseeing this grant, I don't know. Or future grants, but it seems like there's a need for some additional support there, but related to the planning question, I know, so we have comprehensive plan, we have the hazard mitigation plan. We don't have a coastal resilience plan. I'm not totally sure that we need this separate plan, or is it something that we would integrate into future plans? So there is this new bill that's pending in the state legislature that would require a statewide, what is it, coastal resilience, comprehensive statewide coastal resilience plan that would need to be updated every 2 years to assess vulnerabilities, recommend mitigation strategies, and propose financing solutions. It hasn't passed yet, I don't think, but
It was introduced in January. So it's passed now.
So it's realistic, how soon do you think that could be passed? And then how soon will they expect us to implement?
but it's also like how, like, do we get ahead of the game? So if this does
Yeah.
get passed, like how does Block Island feed into it, or position ourselves so that we don't have a when it goes on us, but we have. A plan, we're part of a plan, we have maybe a subgroup that's more down specific, I mean, who knows what it's gonna look like, but. Anyway, these sort of questions around plans and, for such plans, what.
Hopefully, if they pass, they'll be funding available.
Right.
Yeah, just like with the planning board and the new zoning regulations, you have staff. Helps us rewrite them.
So, and then obviously, we would have to see at the table, and see how the state, how they deal with us. How they different, but we could consider fear and fear at the same time, so that that comes with us, and I don't think it's something we can do. Necessarily,
Yeah,
we need to really plan.
but they say they're gonna have an advisory.
Allison's got her hand up. Go ahead, Allison.
I just wanted to add about the conversation about planning documents. So the comprehensive plan, our local comprehensive plan document includes an element that's required by state that is the natural hazards and climate change element. So there's certain, standard content that's required within that. And the New Shoreham's comprehensive plan was adopted in 2016. It's a 10-year plan. So the town needs to start working on updating that plan very soon. So I think the Civil Rights Committee could be very helpful in drafting an update to that section and making it stronger and adding more language and updating the actions within. That's really, we did recently recirculate those implementation actions related to sea level rise. So the comprehensive plan update, I just want to mention, is coming in the near future, and the Sea Level Rise Committee can utilize that document instead of having a separate planning document. It could be incorporated into your comprehensive plan. And of course, in the hazard mitigation plan, there's also language and content in that related to sea level rise, and that's going to be updated this year as well. So you have some required, state required and federally required planning documents that incorporate sea level rise, and it would be great to have Sea Level Rise Committee's input and contributions to those plans.
Great.
I think they've done a few things for the town budget, not for us, but for them. And I think they should increase their Zoom meetings, in terms of paying for staff, rather than relying on volunteers to use the proper methods of doing fencing. I don't know what they are, but I know that there are some that are damaging to the dunes. I don't know what recommendation is regarding dredging, but that's always, for replenishing the beaches. We need money for slip lining those sewer pipes. We're only up to 2% of that job. And then the question becomes, there's a question about the cost of maintaining the redevelopment at West Beach and Spring Street. And then I have hired professional experts to plan, design, seek funding for, and implement engineering solutions. That's already happening, right? Through the plan.
Well, the ones that the area, not into,
And the next one is the question, do we need more assistance in grant writing?
the town has,
I know. Heidi Tarbox, right? Or is she no longer?
no, I think.
No.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
So. To me, just sort of, what to say, to me, I think our biggest request is that there'd be a staff person who said if it was.
Bizarre.
You know, I think we said that, I think we said that last year, and we didn't quite ask for it, so. To me, that's the number one priority in terms of, asking for something to be added to the budget. For the coming year.
Just so we can have, and I also wanted to see money or funding for retired educational workers and for CoSnap on Ocean Avenue.
Yeah, so associated with those, well, we put those in there, I think we're gonna ask.
Didn't Judy tell us that the
The CoSnap.
post-snap thing is part of, is already taken care of, right?
She did say that in one of her.
Yes, that's what I thought.
But was that only for Mosquito Beach and another place?
I think they
No.
decide where they want. the
Yeah, there are
stuff.
two. One of them is for Mosquito Beach and I forget the other
The
one.
CoSnap is for mosquito.
No, town beach house.
Town.
Town beach house.
Okay, I wanted to have one Ocean Avenue North. If that's appropriate.
You mean sort of like pointing to Bimini or something like that? I mean, were the locations were they highly specified, or is it just to get them placed here on Broadway? I mean,
It is something to put on.
yeah, well, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's just really a town budgetary item. It doesn't strike me as being a town budgetary.
I think that CoSnap had more to do with the dynamic nature of wave action and surf and erosion of the beach. Are you thinking about that?
Well, my coast is certainly,
Might get, right, but the
flooded.
CoSnap is part of that,
yeah,
right? But are you thinking about a tide marker, gate or a height? Because that's completely different, yeah. So, I mean, I think you probably have both underway. Right?
Okay.
I mean, Judy definitely said the CoSnap was, was
Yeah.
gonna be in the grant, she said that at last meeting.
And at previous meetings, we mentioned, maybe Allison could use a staff person to assist her, but that goes back to your proposal, right? And then somewhere I read, start alternatives to the 2017 Cornet Road Study and 60% design process. Does that ring a bell? Yeah, okay. I forget where I found that.
Okay. Yeah, I think, those are great suggestions, I don't know when. I'm sorry, do you know when the budget process starts? Soon, right?
Yeah, it's probably
So,
like this week or next
yeah,
week.
so I would say,
Then that you asked for what the committee needs,
sure, yes.
right? And so I can only speak for myself. Valerie and I will need money for developing maps. We have specific maps that we want to develop.
Okay.
But the budget that we have of 2,000, I believe, might be sufficient so that we don't have to make that specific.
What she's saying, we want to do different thing line maps.
Okay.
Just so we can get to finish off.
I see. And what would we use for?
To show the layers, the North Beach Ave, so you can show there's the pump stations, it can show the tide signal along the storm surge in the heart of the year, where the infiltration of the water is.
And those, are you thinking posted something publicly, or what's the
Be an educational tool.
budget for, at our meetings,
For our
or
meetings, if we have public meetings, actually, we have conference projects, see them. Rather than being questions, and it's so small, sometimes I don't have them. especially with the different kinds of sea level rise or storms.
So maybe I should have rephrased it, is $2,000 enough for this committee for our spending money?
Have we ever touched on, the river spent and the river and how pretty, I don't know.
I think the only thing that was earmarked was tide markers.
You didn't know if they were, did we do that?
Did that, but TMC.
So I would say that if you guys have a specific request for the committee, would you put that together and send it to either Judy or me or both of us? Just what it is, how much, that kind of thing. And can I or someone work with you to come up with what that position looks like? I know there are other things going on around town, and so maybe there's a collaboration that could happen to make that position truly come to fruition, that I think I could work with you on that, and kind of what the salary would be, what kind of, we should come to Allison, we should come to Mary Ann, and put together what that would actually look like. So,
Yeah, there are a couple of towns that have just.
Yes, that would be great.
26 million there.
So, yeah.
So she would be great to talk to because she is very, right for that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think pulling together, our ideal kind of job description. And from that, how many hours we would need from someone's time to achieve those goals. And then what that would cost.
Any clarification on the budget recommendation? Did you mean the budget items for the town budget or for our committee budget?
I mean, so you guys were talking about this map thing,
Yeah.
and that would be a sea level rise, $2,000. I think what we're talking about is making recommendations to the town
That's
for ways that they should be allocating resources, not for our use, but for.
But I mean, are we then, let's say we say doing maintenance, and do I or whoever then have to come up with the cost of that?
I think, what I think would be most effective, the dune maintenance, the slip lining of the pipes, the, planning, when the road department is in front of the town council, I think there should be someone, so should you can be there, saying, I think there should be more money put in for dune maintenance and advocating in that way, because those are those departments, that's their responsibility.
Okay, so I could go to the town manager and ask them in general what the cost of doing maintenance is, but I want to increase so that I can just multiply that.
Sure. Yeah, however you think
Because I don't know what the cost of slip lining is, I have to talk to.
well, and so that's what I'm trying to say, like going to these public hearings and saying, okay, so the sewer firm is getting X amount of money, and did you know that only 2% of your pipes are slip lined? Would you consider investing more in that at those?
So I don't have to give dollars.
I don't think that's our responsibility to come up with dollar signs. I think it's just to advocate for.
I was talking about.
Our own project, yes, absolutely.
$10,000, let's say, we should itemize what we want that 10,000 for, that 5,000,
Right.
that's what I was talking.
But we are not going out
So
to.
you can at any point go to a meeting and.
What's the budget do?
So you can then ask them, does that money include slip lining all of our pipes? That's a great time to ask that question, and they'll go, no.
And this is kind of, gets to the mission, I believe, our informed, my informal mission is for everyone to think about sea level rise when they're going about their daily lives.
And the town council will publish its meeting schedule, right, for all these town departments.
It already is,
Yeah.
on Clark's.
I mean, my sense from the community forum that we had last summer is that, you know, the water company and the sewer guys are really on top of this, that they, you know, that they know what they need to do, they've started doing it, and presumably they're the ones who will be asking for this in their budget, so I don't think that has.
And it's just as a matter of point, the sewer and water are outside of the town, they have their own budget process, their own fundraising, either through their grants or through their user base. Right, and sometimes the town will contribute into a major project, but they are not part of it.
Thank you for telling me.
Yeah, so go to,
So go to what?
You don't.
Go to that sewer commission, you know, I mean, go to sewer commission, go, you know, these, I didn't remember that, but I was, if there's some funding, but that would be my recommendation.
And the highway department handles dune restoration, right?
Any other, budget request items that folks want to? Any speakers, anyone have anything about the people that are potentially invited to meetings? Maybe George, CRMC. You're listed as having the CRMC as an upcoming speaker. Maybe we'll wait for you to have a conversation with them about,
Yes, yeah.
Say that. Oh, it does.
I certainly would like to reinforce the idea that we should get CRMC to talk to us
Yes, please.
as a group soon, as soon as possible.
Yes.
To really outline what their rules are, how they make decisions and these things and so on. I think, you know, it's really hard to proceed with a lot of stuff without more information.
I agree.
Are you our CRMC contact? You seem to be in contact with a lot of people on CRMC, George.
Well, it's a lot of different things, I know.
Yeah, right.
And Mary's also been in touch with.
Do you know who, I mean, someone from the permitting group or whatever would be, or maybe they're all.
Yeah, I'll talk to that. The question now is after last night's meeting, if someone from the town is going to be meeting with CRMC, but if you're talking about, just having someone come here just to inform the committee.
Yeah, and anyone who
And
shows up
anyone
to a
shows
committee
up.
meeting, I think that the town thing may be a much less public
Right.
thing, and so that's not going to be very
Yeah, well, this
informative. I think we need an
Someone down here to
education.
explain just overall how you do your business in regards to these coastal resilience.
But also what their own sort of internal, you know, policies, what their science is, and how do they come to
Oh,
conclusions, that, you know, I mean, are they taking into account all the things that, you know, in Senator Goo's, workshop, whatever it was called, you know, that, you know, people like Brian and Walsh brought up and was discussing, you know, what really are the positions that they're taking? How did they give permission for this project when it seems to me there are all sorts of real downsides that should have essentially said, no, this is probably not a good idea, for example.
Well, when I read,
But
yeah, when I read
Exactly.
how they define things, it was, I can see exactly why they approved it. Right, it's non-structural. I mean, they have definitions.
Yeah, no, but
They can come and explain that.
they are,
Because they go
aren't they
through this
supposed
very
to take in,
detailed, incorrect process.
aren't they supposed to take into account the, you know, downstream effects
So-
of these things?
They say they do, but we can
So
get,
the question is how and what?
right, so we can get the, sure, we can ask them to see, to come and talk about that, if they'd like. You know,
The signs that they, I think that's a real question I have is kind of how do they look at these applications, why? What makes a project,
structural versus non-structural.
Yes.
so yeah, that and what makes a project, you know,
But
I think
structural
there's-
is defined as hard. It's not
Actually,
so-
folks-
There's no definitions, when you read the definition, you go, I can see how they got there.
But
Now, you may not agree.
there's as much wood, 4x4s or 6x6s or whatever, in that structure as there are in a staircase, which is counted as a structure.
And I can make a quick comment, when I put the tanks up and everything, CRMC would not do anything until they went to the zoning officer. It's something weird happened with this application.
Yeah.
It's not the norm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And CRMC very clearly have a record, which is very, now there's different interpretations.
Yes, I
But
thought that
it
was.
should not have happened in the manner that it did.
That's,
And that's from her going, and I was in an environmental law class just a couple of years ago. This is weird what happened.
yeah.
It's not the first thing CRMC has done something a little weird.
May I suggest that I've been asking for CMC, pushing for it. That we prepare questions ahead of time and vet them amongst ourselves. And then when you invite somebody to come, present them with the questions ahead of time so that you don't blindside them. That's number one. And number two, I don't want it to become adversarial. How come we let this application go through kind of talk?
I don't think we should talk about that.
It's a separate,
Sure, sure.
totally separate issue. It's just going to be very unpleasant.
Mm.
I think, Nigel's question is the question that I have, which is, what is the science that they use to evaluate projects and educating ourselves more about what their process is?
Organization. No, I'm serious.
Yeah,
So
no.
there's- They have certain
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
even if there's science, because no people will do the research. So even when the science is one way, they have to follow. That's what I said, and I'm not as clear as I should be as I'm sitting here thinking, but we really should have a good idea of what it says in that red book. That's an important piece, because we can sit there and ask all these questions in the world, but a lot of them are already written down. The process is already there.
Can we get that email to us by somebody?
Yes, I'll send it to you. I've got the links.
It's you just link right on their site and they have it updated. right?
It's very involved and lengthy, but I had communication yesterday with. Lisa, whatever it is, it's administrative. Help assistant, and she sent me the links to the red book. Which is all their definitions, all their regulations, as well as a link to. Particular ones relating to what meets a substantive objection. And that's where I came to the conclusion, well, not conclusion, but reading it down, the only thing the town could really do is change ordinances. To have a substantive objection in the case of the Lori property, which is.
Or public comment, if that had to go out to public comment, you have the people adjacent to you that have the right to speak.
Well, they were all people.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, can you reach out to CRMC
Yeah.
and start
Yeah,
cultivating a relationship where they might want to come out and just talk to us about how they make their decisions, what that process looks like, what the application, that kind of thing.
sure.
I mean, could we, do we need to have further discussion on this, or could George be, given the dates of the next 2 meetings to offer, if he can find the speaker, to offer, a slot on our regular meeting agenda?
That would be the idea. We know what those meetings are. so
Yeah,
we can
exactly.
Put those out there and see.
And if people have specific questions to Sorosha's point, send them to George so that he can give them an idea of what, even if don't send them all the questions, obviously, but just, to feel out generally what people are interested in learning about, so that they can send the right person and have for that an available person.
Can I just suggest that CRMC, big organization, they have many, they have planning, they have enforcement, they have permitting. To try to bring maybe a panel so that, you know, because a permitting person's not gonna tell you to sign up behind overwash and vice versa, so.
Yeah.
Maybe something,
Maybe.
or, you know, a couple of people with different, you know, different parts of the.
But I think the big topic is understanding how applications move through their bureaucracy, and, you know, I agree that we shouldn't be targeting one project, which is kind of how they evaluate, projects, what their priorities are,
I would go and add, you know, how we can help them with their job. What is it that we can do? No, I mean, certainly.
serious.
I mean, they are, you know, how can we come to them with things that,
And there's been
help
a
with
lot of
what
talk
they're
about
doing.
how we used to have a CRC representative on the island and what the. What, you know, maybe people are able to that question, but
We had a CRMC representative.
yes.
There was-
Well, there wasn't an employee of CRC, but, yeah, Mike Hilton used to be the kind of person on the ground.
Sort of like eyeballs, and then if there was an issue or whatever, he would come and be able to take the person, hit this office.
I mean, my understanding for the Lord project was that there should be a CRMC person inspecting it as it went along. Was that, did you get that from the?
right, did
Yeah.
say there would be,
Yeah.
there would be an inspection thing before, during, and after.
That was my.
And
And
I don't
then
know
they
that
well,
it didn't happen.
yeah, well, we don't know,
Well,
I guess.
Right, we
I
don't
only
know.
know
No.
the one.
So the only thing I would say is, thinking about this, is I don't wanna have the council reaching out in one direction and us reaching out in another, and
Right.
those two sides not talking to each other. So,
I'll talk to a certain council member.
yeah. So that we're not,
Gotcha, that's
yeah.
easy to do.
It's a small enough place that I don't want them thinking through and also, all right. I'm not just gonna, this is. All right, so tentatively scheduled, next meeting, is April 9th. This is the second Tuesday, April 2nd is an election day, and. Anything else?
Thank you for.
Can I have a solution to adjourn, please?
So.
I really like this.
Yeah.